Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat. Thanks a lot for taking us along wherever you're going, whatever you may be doing. We appreciate you taking Indiana Sports Beat along with you. Jim Coyle with you as always, and I'm very, very grateful to be joined by the Director of Basketball Scouting for 247 Sports. We're starting to know him as the evaluation guru because his talents can't be stopped. Jerry Meyer, thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm glad to be with you.
We appreciate it, like I said. Man, there's a lot going on right now, and as far as scouting and evaluating, because there's a lot to evaluate. First of all, the NCAA is in an area of a time that, like no other. I know the cheating has gone on forever, but things have kind of really been blown up here of late with the FBI trials that are going on and some of the coaches that have been caught up in all this. It really puts a taint on things, and it slows down the fun and the joy of what you normally get to do.
Well, it's bringing it to the surface. That is for sure. And, you know, I think you said it well. We've always known there's cheating going on. I mean, I guess there's cheating in all facets of life, but, we've kind of like turned our head the other way, and this has forced us to, look it directly in the eye, and it doesn't look pretty. Some of the testimony that's come out the last couple of days, very damning for some high-profile coaches.
And we were talking off air about, and you mentioned that while this trial's going on, that it's kind of ironic that the one place that should probably be paying more attention than anybody and have more interest than anyone, the NCAA, has no representation at that trial. Yeah,
I mean, according to Dan Wenzel and other writers that I follow who have been at the trials, you know, actually physically there reporting on them, that's what they're saying, that, you know, the NCAA, you'd think they'd want to check it out. And I'm sure they're going to read the transcripts and all that, but it just seems strange. There's an odd disconnect here where you get this feeling like the FBI is doing the NCAA's job. You also, in a weird kind of twisted way or circular logic, you're like, man, if the NCAA had done their job enforcing the rules and being an effective, you know, agent of, you know, overseeing everything, then we wouldn't have coaches possibly going to jail. Yeah, for stuff that they thought was just part of the job. You know, that's what's sad about this. Like Book Richardson, you know, when he was an assistant in Arizona for Sean Miller, I mean, it's crazy some of the stuff they have him saying on tape. But the fact is that for a lot of assistants, that's just how you did your job. I mean, that's how you do it. And the NCAA is letting it go, and now, you know, I don't think Book ever thought, man, what I'm doing is a crime where I could go to jail. So a lot of people are getting a rude awakening into how, you know, serious this kind of this intertwining of, you know, amateur athletics and its rules meets, you know, criminal federal charges.
Yeah, I routinely refer to the NCAA on this program, especially Mark Emmert, as Muppet Mark. He reminds me of one of those two old Muppets up in the balcony that doesn't know anything about what's going on, but they know everything about what's going on yet. And you talked about letting the FBI do their work because that's what they do best, let other people do their work. It reminds me of last year when they made all these sweeping, quote-unquote, changes. They involved USA Basketball without even letting USA Basketball know a thing about it.
Yeah, and, you know, that's strange. Sort of my take that stands out to me on all that is these changes in the recruiting calendar and creating regional camps run by the NCAA and, you know, trying to have camps where high school teams playing it, you know, just all the different changes. I don't see what they have to do with, reducing cheating in college basketball recruiting. It just looks like window dressing to me. And there's some line about putting lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. How is any of this going to really cut down on cheating? I thought that was the motivation, the emphasis. But, such is life.
Yeah, it'll do for the NCAA, I assume. But we're right in the middle right now of the first season, I guess, of these changes. We just finished the only live period that there will be for coaches to be out watching players, evaluating them. So now the rest of the summer, they have to find other ways to look at and evaluate their players. And these players, more importantly, have to find other ways to catch the attention of coaches. They may not have done so yet, and now won't have that opportunity as they did before.
Right. Guys are going to, all these teams are going to fill up their scholarships. I don't look at it like, players aren't going to get a scholarship because of the changes in the calendar. But what's going to happen is maybe the wrong guys get scholarships, or maybe not the best fits. The harder, an irony here is people complain about all the transfers. Well, the harder you make recruiting and the more difficult and the less days the coaches get to watch the players and the less exposure the players get, you're just naturally going to have more recruiting mistakes, and you're going to have bad fits, and I think you're going to see transfers go up. I would think there'd be an inverse direct correlation.
And as we transfer over, I'm going to be talking about Indiana recruiting. There's no correlation between our previous conversation and the next up recruiting. But recruiting has been difficult for Archie Miller at Indiana as far as landing guys outside of the state that are of high prominence and high profile, which that's probably explained mainly because kids outside of the state of Indiana probably don't see Indiana the way they used to.
Well, yeah, we're not in the Bobby Knight heyday era anymore, and that's for sure. And it used to be Indiana kind of ruled over Purdue. That's not the case anymore. Just competition has thickened and gotten tougher for Indiana recruiting. Indiana used to be seen, although the colors are red, sort of in that category of a blue blood, and it's just. Frankly, that's just not the case right now. I mean, I think recruiting is going okay, but yeah, Indiana does not have the nationwide allure and pull that it might have once had.
And while Archie is trying to get Indiana back to that level, he has the greatest thing as far as a resource. The state of Indiana probably produces more basketball talent per capita than any place in the country. So he's got a great start there. But that's still not the easiest thing to do, is to sell something when you're coming off a year where you lost 12 in a row.
I'm sure, but, there's always a spin. There's always a narrative, a positive one of, that's come in here and let's build something. Let's bring Indiana back to prominence. All programs have to deal with stuff like this. When I say all, 98%, there's some of those that seem to just be on, Duke and Kentucky. They're going to be 1 and 2 every year recruiting. But, everyone else is going to have ups and downs. I think Indiana's going to be fine. I think they have some good players coming in. I think getting Joey Brunk was a big move. It's really going to help the program. And then 2020 recruiting is going to be huge. And, still trying to get a feel and a gauge on where that's going to go with the Hoosiers.
And speaking of 2020, 3 offers went out in the last couple of days from Archie Miller and the staff. Obviously, 2 of those are Indiana kids, Anthony Leal and Trey Galloway from Culver, and then the kid up in Massachusetts also. But those are in-state guys, which has seemed as a plum for a lot of people. They want to see Indiana kids on the Indiana roster, of course. You can't have all Indiana kids, but it's important to have a pretty good mix. When you're producing the talent that Indiana does, you ought to be having a lot of those kids play for you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, man, I remember back in the day, and when Memphis, it was Memphis State then, I mean, they were fielding Final Four caliber teams, just with Memphis kids. I mean, if you got the talent right there, why not? Memphis was supplying Arkansas as well with Nolan Richardson back in that time. So that, that was a hotbed of talent. As a state, Indiana does have a lot of basketball talent. And as long as you can get the top guys from Indiana, you can have a lot of success. And it only makes sense to start there. But then you do have to branch out. You're going to have to get, some high 4-star, hopefully a 5-star guy here and there who's outside the state. That's, I think that's a definite.
Keon Brooks, not getting him, I think, was a big blow to to the program, to the staff.
That had to be disappointing. Yes, they put a lot of time and effort into that, and then to watch it slip away and go down south, that had to hurt, no doubt.
Yeah, not only do they lose a top recruit, they lose it to it's not a rival that they play anymore, but definitely a rival.
Yeah, a unique rival there, a rival we don't play. That's funny, but it's true, and that had to be that was a tough loss, tough recruiting loss.
How does a program overcome something like that? Because that's also hurts from a PR standpoint when you don't land that guy that it looked like you had, who was a plum for your state.
Yeah, you just move on. I mean, I don't know that it was ever like Indiana's got him. There was a time when a lot of people thought Michigan State was going to get Keon. I would analogize it to you lost a ball game. You move on. I mean, that's all you can do. And you learn from it. And you would hope that you learn, and I think this is important for coaching staffs and recruiting. You got to have a plan B, a plan C. You got to have backup plans. I call it keeping a guy warm. You're not ready to take his commitment because you'd rather get Keon. But you keep him warm so that if things don't go right with Keon, you can get that next best thing. You just learn from it. You try to become better at it, and you just move on to the next guy, just like you would if you lost a game during the season.
We're talking to the National Director of Basketball Scouting for 247 Sports, Jerry Meyer. And I know you don't follow only Indiana. You do everything on a national basis. But Indiana is one of those programs that catches a lot of national attention. What do they have to do to get back on that national level besides the obvious thing, simply win to get these kids?
I think that's the answer for a large part is they got to win. I think in the big scheme, it's not that complicated. It's just very difficult to execute because, it's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, having recruiting success or winning on the court? Well, they both feed into each other. So, there's different ways it can happen. You can have that breakthrough and get that elite 5-star guy who can take your program to the next level. More often, though, it's you find guys that aren't necessarily 5 stars, but guys that are undervalued, guys that are underranked by people like me, guys that are under, in the cracks, under the radar that aren't even that well known, or players that fit together, create a synergy amongst themselves, or guys, you look for work ethic and guys that have athleticism and say work ethic, and we get them here, they're going to work and they're going to become better. You develop talent. So you got to try to hit it on all levels, try to get some ringers, find some under the radar guys, find some undervalued players, and then develop the heck out of them once you get them on campus, and then, start getting success on the court, and then that makes recruiting easier.
Trace Jackson Davis.
Easy to say, difficult to do.
Of course. Trace Jackson Davis is not one of those players. He's obviously a very well-known commodity, but Armand Franklin or Anthony Leo, who they've offered, Trey Galloway that they've offered, where do you put those kind of guys?
Well, one, Trace Jackson Davis is a 5-star, on the lower edge of it, and expected to be a pro. Very good player. Your other guys, Leal and Galloway, you're talking probably like role players who are scorers, shooters for you, and you need that, but you can't have a whole team of that. Franklin, I think, solid, good player. He's a guy that you hope plays. I see he's 156 in our 247 Sports Composite, and that's his ranking. You're hoping he plays above that. That we undervalued him. That you're going to make him better. He's going to thrive in the context of your program. So those are serviceable, good guys. With Trace Jackson Davis being more, more elite status. You bring in a transfer like Joey Brunk with experience. I mean, those are players you can win with. Look at that Michigan State team this year. Wasn't the most sexy lineup. Wasn't filled with guys that were McDonald's All-Americans. But, Izzo got the right mix. Those guys had a synergy about them, and that made them better than, the sum of their parts. And look at the successful season they had. I looked at Michigan State throughout the tournament. I was like, all right, surely they're going to falter here. They're going to falter here. They're just not that talented. And then I finally realized, well, they're a little more talented than I thought they were, but they just have a great team chemistry. They play great basketball. And, in a sense, they're overachieving.
Couldn't put it any better. Jerry Meyer, can't thank you enough for joining us. We greatly appreciate you as always.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Jerry Meyer, the Director of Basketball
me.
Scouting. You bet anytime. Hey, how can we ever turn down the Evaluation Guru? Look forward to having you on again as often as we can, man. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate you. That's going to wrap it up for today. Indiana Sports Beat comes back tomorrow. Until then, I'm Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.